Uh, Dr. Nasr, Dr. Ghazali mentioned Ghazali, who in this context is very important. Ghazali is even mentioned by modern popularizers of science like Neil deGrasse Tyson as being responsible for the backwardness or the anti-scientific attitude of Islam, because his criticism of philosophy and of natural philosophers, he says, destroyed the spirit of rational or scientific inquiry in the Islamic world. And this even makes its way into modern political attacks against the Islamic world. It makes its way into the sort of tirades of Islamophobes. Islam is anti-rational, it's anti-scientific, and so forth. I was wondering if you could say something about the way in which Ghazali features into this story of Islam's relationship with science, and maybe dispel some of the misunderstandings that arise in this connection.
Because you're asking one of the most important questions which faces people who are trying to study Islam today, including a large number of younger Muslims in the West who are studying from Western sources. This is a long story. I have to shorten. We really do not have time. But Ghazali was sort of picked by Western Orientalism as a key person to study the Islamic intellectual life from a very particular point of view. And people like Goldsmith, other famous Orientalists, concentrated much of attention on Ghazali and the criticism of rationalism and of reason. And the story was like this. All right, for a while, Europe and the Islamic world were like sister civilizations, but then there came along Ghazali, prevented the Muslims from thinking, and Europeans did not have a Ghazali. Unfortunately, they produced Albert Einstein. That's the heart of this asinine, very stupid argument. In fact, it's a much more profound question. Why is it that Descartes was not born in Khorasan? Why was he born in Paris? Why was Galileo born in Italy and not in Egypt? I've written a lot about this, but I have not time to go into it now. But in fact, it is the presence in Islam of a knowledge of a sapiental order, of gnosis, of ma'rifah, of philosophy in the traditional sense of hikmah, that in fact prevented this from happening. What Ghazali did was not to destroy rational thought. He destroyed the possibility of rationalism, which is a very different thing. If the Westerners are unhappy that Ghazali did that, they should be happy. Otherwise, as I said, the atomic bomb would have made in Khorasan, Oppenheimer would be from Nishabur. That could have happened historically. The question is that Ghazali attacked the power of rationalism to stand opposed to tenets of faith. He had read Ibn Sina. He wrote a book on logic, Ghazali. He's not illogical, he's not Ibn Taymiyyah, Raddu ala al-Mantiq, refutation of logic. He wrote a book on logic, Ghazali. It wasn't that he was against thinking. He was a turning of the stream in which Islamic thought essentially turned more and more towards inwardness, toward Ashraq, to the school of illumination, to other modes of thought, to Tasawwuf, while not disbanding science, because in the 13th century after Ghazali, you have Qutbuddin Shirazi, Nasruddin Tusi, the whole revival of Islamic science. Some of the greatest physicists in the field of optics in the history of science lived actually after Ghazali, Muslims. So this is not what happened. And finally, this is an important issue. Now that the blind application of modern science is killing us all. If Galileo had remained only in the library, there would not have been the environmental crisis that we have. But we have the application of all these things. As soon as something is made in order to make money, it's applied no matter what its consequences for the world in which we live. Now that we have this crisis, we should be intelligent enough to say, thank God there was a Ghazali who prevented from the Khorasan becoming as polluted as Detroit. If you look at the history of the world altogether, you will see that if the rest of the world had started like the West with the Industrial Revolution in the 18th century, we would not be around right now. And the fact that the Islamic world, which has such a remarkable science, in physics and mathematics and astronomy, you know very well. If he had continued along and developing a kind of science independent of the religious worldview, like the West did, we would not be around. The whole earth would have been destroyed. So I don't want to make a virtue out of necessity. There have been great Islamic thinkers who have been critical of Ghazali, including Mullah Sadra, but also defenders of some of his ideas. This idea that Islam stopped thinking because of Ghazali is totally false. I mean, you're a scholar of Islam, you know yourself. Also, not only in Persia, because I mentioned Mullah Sadra, in the Sunni world, all the later philosophical Sufism that developed in Egypt, in the Maghreb, and so on and so on, is very much related to Ghazali and related to the intellectual life for centuries of a part of the world, a very large part of the world.